Okay, good. You ready? Molly, you ready? Okay, great. I'd like to call to order the County Ulysses Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for June 21st, 2023. Members in attendance tonight are Cheryl Thompson, David Tyler, Bob Howard, Andy Hillman, and me, Steve Morreale. Also in attendance is our town planner, Niels Tiggeson, and our reporter, Molly Duell. We'll be documenting our proceedings tonight and I guess running the internet, right? Good, thanks. Our board liaison is Rich Holman, who's not here right now. Okay. Before we begin, I want to ask just a note on the agenda. Does anybody have something to add to tonight's agenda? I think Bob raised a couple questions or suggestions on topics.
I'd like to bring two things up, at least to briefly discuss at the end if we could. One is what the status of our required training is. We heard a bunch from the town board during the spring and all. Last I heard was the May 9th meeting of the town board where they said it would come up again and they would notify us of what the requirements are once it was finalized. And as you may remember, we put a lot of bad pressure on some of that, but I've heard nothing further about it.
You did it or not? It's in the meeting.
I did not.
I think Niels was, we were at that meeting?
But I asked that be a discussion at the end of the
Yeah,
meeting.
okay, great. So maybe
Let's bring it up.
unless if Rich doesn't come in, we might not get it.
If Rich is here, right, but I'd at least like to get on the agenda. and
Yeah,
discuss.
I heard a couple things. So, oh, you're good, great.
And the second item is I would very much like to know what the status of the Angel Heart restaurant proposal for Route 89 is. That was originally going to come to the BZA, I believe, back in November or December. And we were told informally in December that we were no longer needed because apparently the town council had determined that no variance was required, even though previously we'd been told it was a unconforming lot that would require a variance. And I'd like to get on public record as to what the status of that is. And I might suggest that the BZA consider intervening for not having this.
All right, so we'll talk about that and get some clarification. I think Niels could probably get that to us. Okay, thanks, Bob. We'll do that later after we deal with a couple other items. I think the first item, I see a PowerPoint going up there, and I think I wanted to make this a short item of old business, not a long one. And it's a brief discussion of what what we need from the applicants before we decide on how to proceed with the future of CARS appeal. So I think that's where we want to keep it to tonight. And I want to hear the whole proposal.
Yep.
All right, good, great. You have a couple things to say, a couple seconds, or do you just want to hear from us what we need from you?
Start with you guys first,
Okay.
because you guys have an agenda and you know the project
Yes,
with the stuff we submitted, you know why we're here, what the process is we're hoping to embark on.
mhm,
I think we would like to just leave here tonight, knowing that we're all on the same page as to what it is you need.
Yeah.
And there's some things that we want to make sure that we have a chance to talk about because we'd like to further explore them as we go.
Are you here on behalf of cars?
Hmm?
You're on behalf of
Yeah,
cars.
can you
Oh, I'm
introduce yourself?
sorry.
Just for the record. That's all right, just for the record, just introduce yourself.
So for the record, my name is Kristen Savard. I'm the owner and president of Advanced Design Group. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I own the company. We do surveying, construction, and engineering. I am what we're calling the OG of the project because I've been on it since
Yep.
2017 with all the other consultants that have been here.
You're from
Cars.
Western New York, right?
I'm sorry?
You're from Western New York?
Yes, I'm from Niagara, up north of Niagara
Niagara
Falls.
Falls.
I've gotten to the
I
point where I don't say I'm from Niagara Falls because nobody wants to be from Niagara Falls. So we've been involved with the project, my firm, since the very beginning, and I've been kind of the key presenter to all of the boards that we've been to. However, when we come to these meetings, we bring CARS representatives with us. So I have Jessica Jensen. You're the only one here coming. Is anyone else coming that you know of? So Jessica is the CEO of the CARS facility. And there are a lot of coordination and parts going on with this project. And it's one of those things where one thing is linked to the next, which is linked to the next, which is linked to the next.
Sure.
So we want to thank the town for being as accommodating in terms of coordinating, and the communication has been like kind of bar none this time around, and we appreciate that. So yes, I am representing CARS, and we can proceed however you'd like. I can jump right into our goals for tonight, or we can start with you guys first and then go from there.
All right, I want to start with us first, because I think we just want to know, we're going to need some information from you, so who wants to go? Bob? Yep, David had something.
Yeah, let me just raise a question or two, and I'm sure there are more, and I haven't thought about it great depth, because I didn't think it was going to be a major agenda item tonight. But in the 2019 variance we approved, we required a deed restriction on the rest of the land.
Yes.
It's my understanding
We
that it's
approved with the contingent.
With the contingent, yeah.
And that was never.
And so it's my understanding that it's not been implemented. Is that
Did you
correct?
guys get the letter that we wrote back in May? That addresses all of your comments, and that was one of the key things that we explained in detail. So are your questions beyond that, or did you not see that?
I'm
letter?
asking for a simple yes or no. Have you implemented that variance, that deed
No.
restriction?
No, but it was
No, I think we
explained
do,
why.
yeah, you said
Okay.
that, but-
I
In the
want it on the
letter.
public record because of.
Oh.
you know,
Right. So, yeah, you didn't go forward with that, and that
And-
just kind of stayed
and the-
wherever it was at the time.
Correct,
Sure.
because the deed restriction was gonna stay with the land, even if the project didn't go. So
Sure.
things got parked with the intent that prior to applying for a building permit,
Mhm.
that's when the deed restriction would be put into place and go from there.
Sure.
So we still don't have a building permit application in, so the deed restriction is still there and still gonna be done as a part of this process.
Okay.
You know, just to be clear and on the record, it was no conscious decision to avoid doing something or to skirt an issue or a
Sure, that's
requirement.
fine.
It was
I
absolutely
appreciated your
a
letter too,
practical.
saying, oh, yeah, well, we're gonna
Yep.
go forward, and there was a technicality.
But
The last
thank you
one I
for that.
saw was, and I don't know if anybody else saw another copy, or at least further edited, but it was like a bunch of red edits in the kind of review. Yeah, thank you. That's the
Sorry, I don't
last
know what you're
one, right?
talking about.
The last kind of agreement was going back and forth between the lawyers.
And
How long
I,
was it?
I try and stick with what I'm good at, so I'm
Okay.
not privy to that. I don't know,
Okay, but we want to be
Jessica.
privy to that. We want to be
Yeah.
privy to that before we make any decisions. I'd like to see all the old, where we got to in that last one. See, most of us were here. I remember
Yep.
well, and most were here, and we kind of made a bunch of agreements that we would probably be somewhat faithful. I don't want to speak for everyone, but be faithful to. So I'd
Yes.
like to see what all those agreements are and where it came to after it went to the lawyers and all that, because I don't think I ever saw that. Did you, as chair?
No, and I was chair at the time. We
Mhm.
spent a tremendous amount of time
Yep.
working with cars, and I thought the way that was agreeable to us and agreeable to you. So
I
I
don't
am
think there's
just
any plan to change that.
disappointed. Okay, my second question is, and this is one for us, but what is it in your request would make it a new hearing as opposed to a rehearing? Because legally, those are different aspects for us, and I don't understand, to me, on the face of it, this seems like a rehearing request for what we already did, which is a
So-
different legal standard than if it's a new hearing with a different request.
I will speak to my understanding of it, and you're gonna jump in, right, if I misspeak, but, so it's my understanding that the reason that it's being considered a new hearing, and I honestly don't know if it's entirely a new hearing or part rehearing and part new hearing, is because while we were parked and unbeknownst to any of the design team and in the car's CEO and ownership or management, the zoning was changed in the entire town, your whole town went through a rezoning.
Right.
So when that rezoning hit, it created the need for variances we didn't need before. So what we are here for are two entirely new variances that weren't needed the first time. So those will be given as a brand new variance. But then because the site plan has changed and because the deed and all of that was not filed under those conditions, they're treating this as a rehearing on those issues, more or less. So everything is gonna kind of go through the whole process from the beginning in terms of a public hearing and all of that. But how you classify it is really dependent on which one of the variances you're looking at. Is that-
Yeah, so let me jump in on that. I think that you don't want to keep or just loosely throw on the word rehearing. Because
Okay.
technically, I just want to clarify this. You're saying you're going to add two more variances onto the previous variances we already addressed.
That is correct. In the
Okay.
previous
So I'm
variances.
not sure that would be a rehearing of the two and then not a rehearing. There's new information that's brought to light.
Yep.
That's an important criterion for not being a rehearing. You've also got some new variances you're throwing in there, and I understand from what I've heard from the planning board that you got some new information and you adjusted according to the new.
Yes,
Is that
yes, yes.
Does that answer?
And is there
Yeah,
a
but
difference in the process?
Yeah,
I mean,
yes,
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 very,
because if
very.
it's a rehearing, it requires unanimous approval by all five of us, to
Just
even
to say
consider it,
yes to consider it.
even to consider it.
Okay,
And it requires unanimous approval by all five of us to do it. So if it's a
Got it.
Very
rehearing,
good.
you are on
Very
very tenuous ground. We need to be clear on that.
so
So
can we
I
go
know,
back
put
and
the
ask the
legal-
question again? I think that this is a whole new application of new hearing. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I mean,
No,
Yeah,
no,
but that's, the
I
goal
did
here
want
is to get to the
clarification.
end
You are-
line.
And
you're
I'm not
just
trying to
changing
differ
Yeah.
two- You're not making two new ones only. You're adding, you're putting a couple new ones on top of the ones that we're revisiting them.
But if you're,
Revisiting is the right word, because we really want to revisit the 500-year storm requirement and talk with the board about
I
that.
heard
No,
a
that-
rumor
that-
about that.
Yeah.
that I would consider a rehearing, because we decided on that. So if that's your point,
But new information has come to light because the DEC has changed their regulations.
so that's a rehearing based on new information, but I would argue that's a rehearing.
On the whole, you're saying.
On
Even if
that
the
aspect-
submittal,
On that aspect, yes.
that's the submitted information in terms of what we're providing for proposed conditions, as well as the regulations with which those conditions were created under have all changed. And so,
And that's grounds for a rehearing.
okay, that's, and
And
that's
it
you guys to
requires all
decide.
five of us to be unanimous in all aspects, so just to let you know.
Let me just ask, is your new application going to be based on the total area, both in the Schuyler County and?
That hasn't changed. That is correct. It's
They're
all the
revisiting the
same.
same thing. They're asking for it, and we're gonna,
It's all
we're
the
either gonna
same.
say yes, or we're gonna say, let's see that old covenant and let's re-examine it.
And
We'll reach out to the attorney tomorrow and
Yep.
make sure you get that copy, and
Is that the same attorney or different? you know?
our attorney is the same, but your town attorney is
Yeah,
different.
yeah, sure.
Yep, and so we actually had a call, very long, hour-long call today with everybody, a lot of the people from the town. That wasn't the subject of the
Mhm.
call, but
Yep.
it's easy enough for us to reach out, and make that happen. I absolutely would rather have that done before we're before you again.
Me too. I would request that you have that attorney, that nice woman who's here the first time. Was it you? No.
Well,
It wasn't Wendy or
You weren't-
It was
Carrie.
Wendy or Carrie.
Yeah,
I would-
Wendy, I
I
think.
had
you-
been Wendy, yeah.
Okay, all we have is edited version, so I'd like to see what the final agreements were between the lawyers, because our lawyer's not, we don't have the same lawyer, so I'd
Yep.
like to get it from you.
Okay.
That would be great beforehand, before we decide.
Yeah, I really would like those discussions to be resolved
Yep.
as much as possible, outside of here, so we're not taking up everybody's time, and it really is an attorney
Agreed.
thing with your
Agreed.
review.
So,
My
restricted covenant aside from
recollection
that?
is that these deed restrictions,
Yep.
whatever they may be, were going to be reported in both Schuyler County and Tompkins
But
County.
they never went that far. is my
They never went that
understanding.
far.
No, I'm not saying that's what I would look to
Mhm.
see, because
Oh, yeah, so make sure that if we know that, that'd be great. So you don't have to spend time and, we need to know that the next time around.
Okay,
Good. Anything else that you would require of this before we consider it? First, we want to know what those two new things are, and I think I want to know about what the planning board decided and why.
okay, so are you
You
looking,
were there, right?
Yep.
Okay,
are you looking for me to now jump into what the two new variances are, and talk about it a little bit?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Does anybody care to entertain that tonight, or
How about just a sneak preview?
sneak preview? I
So
see.
in
I had
general
brief. I
terms.
put brief in red, big red.
In
Sure.
general terms, under the new zoning, there are two regulations that we did variance from. One is that you cannot have two separate primary buildings. And then you can also each building can have a maximum square footage of 5,000. So we are over we exceed the one because we have two buildings, and the other one we're over the 5,000. So
And was that true with the original?
those variances didn't exist. We did not change our
No, I know,
conditions.
okay, but did the project also change?
Not with relative to those. The project did change because we were forced to go back in, I won't say redesign, but reduce the footprint and reduce a lot of what we were designing because of the cost of changes of everything. So that is how it changed, and it was a reduction. So seeker was less, everything was less, because the impact was less.
Mhm.
So that was the change. But that was, we took, there was some additional parking that we had in there. We took that out. There was a basketball court we were relocating. They're gonna continue to use the one that's there. So they just really value engineered way more and throttled it back because the budget really can't change too much, so we had to make things work. But I do want, if at some point, I just wanted to quickly describe the 500-year storm design element, because it is adding, we are in such a strapped situation financially because of what's happening post-pandemic in this construction economy. And the inclusion of the 500-year storm was brought about previously because we were asking for a coverage increase, which directly relates to more runoff. And we were really on the heels of some of the nasty storms that had come through. At the time that was happening, you probably all know, the DEC and some of the NOAA and the other agencies were working to come up with and create a system where, and revise the rainfall intensity numbers that we use in our calculations, as well as some other input data to reflect the changes that have been happening with these recent storms and some other things. So now there is a new system in place that is mandated that we have to use that reflects an exact location. So we put in a bearing or an XY coordinate to where our project is, and we actually get a rainfall data that has been generated for that specific location. That data is intended to reflect the current or the most recent significant storms, and therefore it's achieving what the board was intending to achieve at that time. But if you continue to require the 500-year storm requirement, it is so significantly huge. Our design right now, it's accommodating it, but it's adding a significant cost to the project, as well as it's resulting in a significantly larger amount of disturbance. So in order to accommodate this, it's a quantity control, which means we need to hold everything back in a dry detention pond. We don't need to make our wet ponds bigger. So the most economic way of meeting that requirement is still having a significant disturbance effect and financial effect on the project. And the state and NOAA and the federal government have already implemented a policy and a procedure and regulations to address what your concern was in the first place.
Let me ask, is the number of this project creating a women's facility?
Yes, it is creating a women's facility.
That's what we need to be focused on.
Absolutely. And everything that we spend on the site work is money taking away from this goal of the project. We can't change regulations and things that we have to do to comply with those regulations to get the approval. So we're trying to do them as the best value engineered way we can. It's very difficult and frustrating to go back and try and scrimp and scrape on stuff they really need when this requirement is there taking up money and it's already being addressed by other regulations. And that wasn't the situation when we came through the first time. So we really would be looking to revisit that topic either with further discussion, or maybe you know enough already. We'd really like to get that off of the requirement and get that off the plan, so we can reduce the footprint of the impact, reduce the construction cost, and stay further away from the adjacent areas and adjacent properties.
When you're drawing up those maps for us, you're gonna show us where you demarcate the line for the current regulations, and then please show us where the 500 year.
I can show you.
No, next time.
Okay, there's ponds right
Let's
there
look
to the
at it.
right of the building. Those
Is
would
the
go
pond
away.
or the swale,
The-
which is the dry retention basin or the? pond?
Yes, this would all go away. All of this
One on the side of
earthwork
the creek over there.
and some of the pipes, and then this would get narrowed down significantly. So that's all just for the 500-year storm.
Yeah, Bob.
What you're requesting to me is a rehearing, and it would require unanimous approval. You're bringing it to us based on what you say is new information, but you're asking us to reverse our decision based on a new hearing. And I'm not likely to approve it, just to let you know. So you
Really?
can talk it over with your lawyer and think about it, but as one of the 5 voting members, I'm not saying I won't, but we put a lot of thought into that. This is an area I have some expertise in.
Mhm. And I'm well aware of that.
And I question some of what you just said. So if we were to have a
Oh.
rehearing, well, you said that the state and the federal agencies all have these new policies and they're approved.
Mhm.
I don't believe that's the case. I don't
We
believe the
have
federal
new-
agencies have yet approved it.
Oh, for literally since 2021, I think it was, we have new input data for the intensity of storms. It
On
used to
the
be,
500-year flood record for this area, for New York.
I'm sorry,
Are you telling us for the record that the federal authorities have approved new flood control?
I'm not talking floodplain. I'm not talking floodplain.
You're
I'm
talking about 500-year floods.
No, so you're talking FEMA and floodplain. I'm talking DEC stormwater regulations.
I'm talking Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, so the DEC puts out their, the speedies regulations based on NIPD's. So when I say federal, I'm speaking about the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System for Construction Activities.
Which is regulated by DEC, but you implied that federal agencies have approved that, and I do not believe that's true.
Well, the federal agent,
That they're actually under review at this point, and they might or might not be approved.
I'm not talking about floodplain mapping. I want to be very clear.
I'm not talking about mapping either. I'm talking about the flood frequency and how we describe it.
That's not what I'm referring to. And I'm referring to the input data that we put into our formulas. When we size our calculations, when we do our runoff calculations, and everything that's spelled out by Speedies. Prior to when we did this last design, the information that we put into our calculations, it was based on known graphs and maps and things. So you would figure out what your intensity was in inches per hour for the 2, the 10, the 25, and the 100.
And when was the last time we had a 500-year flood in Tompkins County?
Okay. I can address that. You didn't want to get into all of that, but what I wanted to make clear is that the regulations from the DEC have changed, and you no
Those are
longer
not
are
binding
doing
on
it.
us. Those
I'm
are not-
sorry?
Those are not binding on us. And you implied that federal agencies approved that. That is a misstatement for the record. No federal agency has yet approved the DEC regulations that I'm aware of.
I'm not talking new regulations. I'm talking the input data. And that's the only thing that changed was the input data that was. I went to all kinds of things with Don Lake, and the input data was changed to this new way of doing it to reflect the higher numbers. Our 100-year storm, when it changed,
How many
for the area.
100-year storms have been in the town of Ulysses or Tompkins County in the last 20 years? How many 500 years?
and honestly, I'll be honest, I don't know that
Okay,
for
well, then
every
two-
single,
There
for
have been two 500-year storms in Tompkins County in the last 20 years. And that's why we settled on that in our hearing. If you're asking us to rehear it, that's a rehearing. And you should make a formal request for a rehearing, which we will consider. I suggest you talk to your attorney first, because the regulations around that are quite tight.
Okay, regulations around the rehearing are quite tight. What I would like to formally say then, and I mean this with all due respect, but your opinion and your expertise is extremely valued. However, as a developer and as an agent of the developer, we have a set of guidelines, laws, and regulations that every project we do has to follow. Those regulations, we've been notified. Those regulations are intended to reflect the increase in frequency of the 100-year storms. If you're going to change those regulations based on an area of expertise that you have, I'm sorry, I really think that needs to come from the town engineer or an agency that has the authority to do that. We have been approved to do this. We were talking with, and I'm sorry, Jimmy Joe Carl, who works for Stormwater Management Group, the county coalition, the Stormwater Coalition. He was reviewing this previously, and he was on board. He understood what the goal was. We went through everything I just said to you with him. He is the person reviewing our stormwater regulations, and he supports it. I get what you're saying,
You're
but
asking
I
for a
do not.
rehearing. That's all.
And I would call to the fact that that is a complete, I personally and professionally believe that if you're going to vote no on something that is an engineering issue, you should recuse yourself, because that is not where
Okay,
you
all
are
right, all right.
here.
Well, you're going in a way off track here, way off.
But
track.
we're talking, this is a
No, we're going way off track
significant,
here.
this is a
You're
significant
just
effect
pushing it
on,
off into a place where you're not right, and we don't belong in this conversation. Because there are minimal restrictions on you, that does not impact what our decisions are necessarily, okay? We can be more stringent if we want to, so we're not going
Okay.
there, it's too much talk and information right
Okay.
now. And I would like a clarification, we're gonna have to really look at this about, this does seem to be a rehearing on two variances and a new hearing on 2 variances, is that what we're revisiting 2, and they're being proposed to revisit 2 more, is that true?
If I hear correctly, there was a variance that was, the variance that was granted was for the 5% lot coverage.
Correct. Over there.
And there were two conditions as part of that one variance.
Mhm.
So the board could consider that to be a rehearing, because
Right.
the one condition would be the 500-year flood
So
event.
that was a condition and not really hearing it.
That was a
That was
condition,
not an
it
appeal. That
was,
was,
it was a
so that-
condition on an area variant of the 5% lot coverage.
that was not an appeal. That was just a condition. that
It was a condition that we made, which was not appealed.
Right, no, it was not appealed at the time. Yeah, it was not
And
appealed.
the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
passed.
Yes.
So it requires a rehearing.
And then if you want to parse it out, if the board wants to parse things out, then I would see the two new area variances for principal building and
Mhm.
square footage as potentially a separate new area variance request.
One of them was not new. The square footage is not new.
That's
It's-
new.
It is new. Because of the 2019 zoning code,
That
that's
square footage is less, that's good.
Yes, our proposed square footage is less, but it's still more than 5,000.
Right, right.
So there is a square footage or an acreage related to the coverage, and that's the renewal variance. This is about the square footage of the building itself.
Oh, I got you. Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
'cause the
I- I-
building,
I ran off the-
That 5,000
Original.
square foot is really a maximum
So
for
we
new
have lot
building.
coverage. We have 3 now. Is that what I'm hearing? Lot coverage?
lot coverage.
Two new ones, right? Primary building and 5,000 square foot.
For the building. Sorry.
Right, and then
Lot coverage.
the
Over 5%.
rehearing and the other.
In the interest of full disclosure,
Yep.
I may have mentioned this before, a couple years ago. I was on the New York Alpha Foundation for many years, which was the entity that allowed you people to operate. And so, as it was, that came to be because New York didn't want to have the operating entity and the property owning entity being the same, which has now changed. So I just wanted to let you know that I have some recollections of what went before this whole project. And I'm familiar with what you were received to do. And, you know, it's admirable, but I'm not, the question is, will it fit in the pigeonholes that we're stuck with?
I think you went on the record earlier to tell us your history, which was great. So thanks for reminding us. And there's going to be no recusal of anybody at this point. Anybody else? Do we need any more information before we take this under advisement? But what I would like to consider, and I'd like to find out about portions of things that are being reheard. And what's the ruling on that?
So staff's,
Clearly, there's some rehearing going on here, some portions of it.
okay, so staff's going to request the board be very clear for us, for our benefit and for the applicant's benefit of what the board needs for materials to review. If it's going to be a new variance request versus a rehearing. So if we can start with that, I have 4 other items, hopefully to get clarification on, but can we start with that one? So far I've heard you'd like to have a site plan that demarcates the lines for where the 500 detention would be and then what's currently proposed. Okay. Would it help the board to get comments and review letter from Jimmy Joe Carl, who's reviewing? Would that
I
help?
mean, I'll take any data, but that doesn't mean, I mean, I listen to experts every day. So sure. I don't know, not Jimmy Joe too much. I don't know the credentials, but sure. I'll look at stuff.
I don't know, Niles, have you been able to piece together what went on, 3 years ago from your records?
As far as what?
As far as this whole procedure we're talking about tonight, what happened before, what happened in 2019, I think it was. You have a pretty good handle on that or not?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. BZA gave their approval. I went to the planning board gave approval, but then COVID happened and I think Kristen did a good summary of that whole thing.
So, and from you, I'm requesting we get the minutes from then,
So those were previously distributed.
okay? And I think, what was the other thing I asked you for then? Minutes and I guess the covenant was really key to this covenant.
And that's
I don't think
for
you
the
got that,
applicant.
that's in your core book there, so that would be great. So we can look at that.
So
You're looking for a finalized version of that.
Yeah, because the one I got is all red marked up and not really agreed upon, a lot of strikeout and stuff. I don't know, what was the one you got?
Same way.
Yeah, same way, okay, so it was not finalized.
And I haven't even seen
And I'm
that,
not sure
so,
which
yeah.
party sent that and who was agreeing, whether it was agreed upon or not, so. If we can talk to,
Was that recently sent or is that from 2019? Okay. Just so I know what I'm asking.
back then, do you have a date on that one? I did,
No, it was never signed or dated.
Who are the parties?
that was 2019.
2019.
You have a
We
new
don't know.
attorney now too. There's a new attorney for the town.
Oh, we know.
so,
Oh, we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And I can certainly work with our team, our two attorneys. See that we're here in 2019.
Yeah.
so we'll work with them to get
Yeah, I just, we were just not included at that, in the final, that, what was finally agreed upon.
It was never finalized.
Or it was never finalized. But I'd like to see the
No, we weren't
last
copied.
iteration of it, if nothing else. Okay, that'd be great.
And just one clarification, I'm not sure if you guys are like Jimmy, Joe, Carl, you guys, the town hired him.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure you knew that wasn't just somebody that we
Oh, I know, it's
arbitrarily went
random.
to as a
I-
consultant. Okay, he's the one who we were directed to review
Yeah,
the
you know, we
plan.
work with climate scientists every day, and some of the
Yeah.
world's leading climate scientists. We have a
But I
lot
just
of-
wanna make sure
we
you
have
knew
access
that.
to a lot of information on this, and specifically for here too.
Okay,
So, this isn't just piping off
May I ask
an opinion with opinion.
who referred you to him?
no, but we didn't refer, we were told to call him,
By whom?
the town, that he
Who's
was
the
who the
town?
town was
What-
using.
Or the town, they're the town. town's enough
I'm guessing it was John Zepco.
people. Okay, is that back in
In the
time?
town, I believe. I believe the applicant was responsible for paying the cost of his consulting, which is normal.
Yeah.
And we sent everything off to him.
That's
um,
before we made our original decision, is that correct? This is not new information.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
I feel like that we knew that previously, didn't we?
You know,
No,
you're
he
testing my
reviewed it
memory. It's been
after.
4 years.
Yeah, I know. Oh, okay, all right.
he reviewed it for speedies, because the reason he got involved is because we needed someone to sign the MS4 sign off.
Yeah, right, right.
And so we coordinated with him back with the original design a while ago. He came back with some comments of things he needed, but nothing was done because everything was officially parked at that point. So when we reinitiated things, there was a little bit of back and forth whether he was gonna be the guy, but we reached out to him just assuming he was gonna be the guy and started the review again, kind of picking up where we had left off. So even though our
Okay.
plan was slightly different, we took the comments that he had provided earlier,
Sure.
because they were still applicable, addressed them and went through the review with him at that point. And also at that point, let him know that it was our intent to come in and request a change to this 500-year storm thing. And that in all likelihood, he was gonna have to offer an opinion on it. And we wanted to get his opinion before we even went down the path of talking to you guys. At that point, after much discussion back and forth, he was truly officially on board. And that's why I'm a little dumbstruck by it, because it shocked us. It's surprising. So, but we'll deal with it.
Yeah, we will.
How it
We'll
is.
deal with it. You also have some world leading experts on the planning board you talked to.
Yep.
Did they raise any of these questions? About water and
The 500-year storm, I think we offered up to let him know that was happening. And then Rebecca had some great comments, brought up stuff about the buffer setback to the creek that's
Oh,
to
yeah.
the north and things like that. And that's one
Reminded
of,
you that there's a creek there and there's a buffer that you gotta honor.
yep,
Yep.
yep. But she pointed out that there were county regulations that could have applied. And so we went back, found those,
Mhm.
and luckily everything was good. So we didn't have to really make any changes for that. But we did address all of that. But it just brought to light again that the only reason we're doing that amount of work back there is because of the 500-year storm. So again, I apologize, everything fed to that it
Mhm.
made sense the 500-year storm was gonna go away because the DEC had done what they did. So
Okay,
we'll deal with it and go from there.
anything else? Any things we would like to see?
Just, just to reemphasize, the deed restrictions are gonna be going to both counties.
Yep.
And I assume you've been in touch with the town council, with the town of Hector, think that's that.
Or is it? Put in there?
I have no idea.
Yeah, me neither. I thought, oh, whatever, yeah, it'd be nice to know what they're.
Anyway, I guess.
I think we heard last time that there wasn't any limitations.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is we're gonna be revisiting this thing, better get everybody up to speed.
Yeah,
The proper people.
I think we were informed last time that the town of Hector, I don't want to say didn't care, but that this didn't affect them or infringe on any of their regulations.
You know what, you're right, because.
But we better find out if that's still true. Things change,
Right, that, we found that out really early in this
I agree.
process. And then that's when you guys started treating it like you guys needed to kind of look, make sure they were covered too. Yeah, that I'm
Right,
remembering
because
all
we could do
that.
all this, we could go through all this
Yep.
and then they could say, no, that's not happening. So let's not.
Yep, I do remember that.
Niels, anything else you can think of this time?
Will this be a rehearing for that one item?
Well, we don't know.
Definition of rehearing again.
Yeah,
Decide that right now.
remember I said that very quickly.
And do we have a choice? Is there, can the applicant, like if we consult with the attorney,
I don't know. That's
You can make an argument to it. It's actually up to us to decide if
okay,
it's a rehearing or not.
Right,
And as you can see, we're confused about what the criteria are, and so your legal opinion could matter to us.
is it,
you can see why a rehearing, if you say, I want to do this, and then you come back a month later and say, hey, I want to do this again, I want a rehearing on it, because I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
so,
That's not, that's a rehearing of exactly the same thing, and nothing new, but those aren't the words are pretty.
You're bringing new information.
Yeah.
here, But I think it's probably a rehearing. I'm not a lawyer.
so does the discussion about this have to happen in a forum setting? Or is this something where we can initiate the discussion because it's a procedural matter and come to a conclusion with legal counsel from the town and Carr's attorney? If they decide that this is a new hearing all the way through, is that something that can be decided, outside of this room before we come back? And the reason I ask that is because your point is well taken. If we go the route of rehearing,
Yep.
we're married to the fact that we get nowhere without a unanimous vote.
Yeah.
Right.
So
And even
if
if
we
you go
are,
somewhere, you still need another unanimous vote.
You need, I'm not a lawyer again, but,
right,
and none, well, one of us is, but most of us are not. I think the law is sort of clear on it, but I'm not a lawyer, I never know. If it is a rehearing, it requires all of us to approve even hearing it. We can take legal input from our town, we can take legal input from your counselor. We don't have to agree with that. We can disagree and do it, you can sue the town over there if you like, but in the end, that decision's ours. Nonetheless, obviously, we take professional information from wherever it comes from,
Mhm.
and we're confused about this. So I think having legal input from your counsel and from our town council is a good idea,
I like the
recognizing
idea.
that's not binding on us.
mhm.
Right.
Information would be great. So if someone wants to really dig into the New York State definition of a rehearing, the exact.
I mean,
I gotta think
say,
somebody does
well,
it.
this isn't.
I have the
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
50
yeah,
page
me too. And I
cookbook
we
version.
went through this
that
a
the
month or
state
two ago.
puts out for PCA members, right? And it's pretty clear, but that's not the same as the real law, so.
yeah, and at the end of the day, the goal here is to get a shovel in the
Well,
ground.
and before we all meet together and start racing these, Niels, you had something here.
We have Gina Middleton, who's on our town legal, who can weigh in maybe if she has any comments on this part.
Oh, I'm.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of looking it up as you speak. So I'm leaning towards the fact that it is most likely a rehearing because there are rehearings that include changes in fact or circumstances if it's the same application. But it's not something, I can't give you a definitive answer today, but I'm leaning toward it's probably a rehearing.
So Gina, a very specific nuance that I would like to address or ask about is if part of it is rehearing and part of it's new, is that the whole thing a rehearing? How much is it? 2/3, 4/5,
Yeah.
5/5?
Yeah, so I have that on my notes as well on how much we can break it down into its individual parts.
This one's gonna be that.
Well,
It will be-
Let me suggest, Gina, that's really helpful. Let me just
Yeah,
throw
thank
out my viewpoint at the moment, again, from a non-legal perspective, is that we're dealing with two different sets of issues. One is your reconsideration, for lack of a better word, based on what you think is new information, which sounds to me like a rehearing, and it sounds like Gina perhaps agrees too. And, you can ask us for that, but it requires us all to do it, all to hear it, all to approve it. And you're asking for something else separate from that, which would be a new hearing.
Almost two different actions.
Yeah, that's why I wonder how that works. right?
Perhaps they're separate.
Well, let me ask one
For
more
us.
question. If we decide to leave the original variance as is and keep the 500-year storm and not ask to revisit that, does it even have to go back through a hearing process?
The other thing to do,
The other things, that would be a new hearing. But does that variance stand because the changes to the site plan and everything are smaller?
statute limitations, I don't know, because it was so many years ago, did that run out, or,
And that was a question we had,
Agreement?
is because the deed was never filed, so that it,
I know,
I guess, having not looked at this quickly, I think there's a provision that requires the applicant, when they're successful, to diligently prosecute the fulfilling of the rent of the application.
I thought there was a number on that too, is there?
I think I thought it was a year, but it may be.
No,
so if there is a time frame, or if it is determined that the original variances are not technically quote unquote in place because the deed was never filed and construction was never started. This is an area variance that never was constructed or executed. Does that mean that variance goes away and never exists? And then what are you rehearing?
I think you need to ask the person
And
behind
is that,
it.
because then it may by default be that there's nothing to rehear because it was never
Yeah, it
finalized,
could
and
be,
everything
right.
is new.
Ask Gina.
I think you're raising an interesting question, which I've been mulling
That's
as we've been
Yeah, me too.
talking about.
Yeah,
And we-
I mean, so I pulled the regulations that define rehearing, which is a motion for the zoning board of appeals to hold a rehearing to review any order, decision, or determination of the board not previously reheard. So hypothetically speaking, it would require a final order, decision, or determination. So sort of like an appeal, you can't appeal something that a final determination hasn't been made on. So if the final determination wasn't properly filed and all of the steps necessary to implement the decision weren't filed, there's a possibility that there's nothing to rehear. However, this is a relatively novel issue, so it's something that we're going to have to look into before we can give you a definitive answer.
We're gonna need some legal people, we're gonna need legal expertise in this, which is you. I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
I've got a list already going of things that I'm going to have to, Nate and I are going to have to look into.
And it definitely affects more than just like the vote. So it's not like it's something that we
Everything.
can leave until the night of the meeting
Nope.
because it's gonna affect your public hearing
We need
notices
this
and
in the interim
everything.
before we
Yeah.
decide what to do and all that.
And that can happen separate, and then a decision can be rendered, and then do you guys have to meet as a board and vote that you agree?
For a rehearing, yes, we do.
And if they decide that there isn't a need for a rehearing because nothing was filed, or,
No, I think we
and-
could do that.
We can
as
still
we usually do.
We can still decide that, right? I mean, it's what they recommend is not necessarily.
But
but
I
if they
think
say that the old approval's done in this, and
If
then
they say
they
it
come
didn't
up.
really happen, let's just wipe
Start
this
over?
slate clean and all that, then we could talk about it, and I think we could schedule a meeting. That would be up to us to
I think the
do that.
legal beagles need to decide, and hopefully there's an agreement among the various parties. And that way we can proceed from there.
But I think we've established that whatever decision they make on this entire situation about
It's gonna
hearing versus
help.
rehearing, that information is gonna come in, but it's gonna take your board to have a quorum and a vote as to identifying how that gets translated into our progress to
Yeah, I'm
proceed.
not sure.
Right? So
you lost me on
a
that.
meeting is needed.
No, you departed with me on a quorum and a vote thing.
We're
That's
not-
not necessarily true.
We're not sure.
But I'm just saying you have to have it in a meeting. Like
So I
you,
think what we
Not
need to
necessarily
do
true.
is wait and
Okay.
get the advice of the
Yep.
legal staff.
For
right?
sure, and then
And
we
so
can
they
make a
can let us know.
decision.
Yeah.
What's ex parte?
I think what you're hearing is that
We can make a
if
decision
our-
outside of that.
if our town council advises that it would not be a rehearing because the whole thing is moot because it never happened, then we could still insist that it's a rehearing if we want, but we're unlikely to do that against our own legal advice.
In which case, we'll decide whether to have the meeting or not. And
Right.
that's-
Will we
it's not a
decide that?
You have to
Will we
decide.
decide that at the meeting or will we
Mhm.
decide that?
That's up to me to decide.
Oh, okay.
That's, and I guess that's my question is,
I think the question is really about our process and we're trying to keep ourselves kind of on track.
As soon as we get that, then we'll make
Yeah.
a quick
And so-
decision on whether we're gonna have a
Yep.
meeting.
And we're not purposely trying to stall, believe me.
Yeah, no, that's
But if
fine.
it comes, a week before, we're not having a meeting. I mean, we're not.
Right, and so we're just looking to figure out, so we'll be able to get that information and we will look to you guys to advise us next steps when the next time we come back in front of you.
Absolutely.
That's really
And if you could,
Okay.
go through meals on everything, that'd be awesome.
I don't mean to be a pain. I just want to clarify.
late.
I know,
I
I'm
said
sorry.
short. I said brief and short.
I know, but I just want to clarify, if the ultimate decision of how to proceed comes down to your board,
Yep.
that ultimate decision, or does it come down to you as an individual? Because if it comes down to your board and then that becomes a legal direction to proceed, doesn't that have to happen at a meeting where you take a vote? I just want to make sure that we don't make a misstep and proceed without actually making that decision in the right setting. I envision the attorneys offering their opinion,
right.
and then maybe there's a coordinated email where everybody says, yep, we're good.
Yep.
That's not gonna hold in court because it's not a decision made on the record in a public setting.
Well, what
So,
holds in court is if I say we're having a meeting, then we're having a meeting.
exactly, so we need
So
a
I'm not
meeting to
being
make
that-
that decision.
I'm not, being-
But at that meeting, we might have a debate about whether it's a rehearing or not.
Correct.
Regardless of what the lawyers agree, it's still this body that has to approve it.
That's what I want to make sure that
Clearly.
everybody's clear and that you understand the decision of how to proceed. Okay.
And we won't be approving anything. We'll be doing things over email. They're all foilable, so we're not,
It
anybody can
looks
see
like
those.
people got lots of homework to do.
Can I read something about rehearings from, we've got? or-
For
It
me,
says-
the one I
It
sent.
says the application for rehearing may be denied by the board if from the record it shall appear that there has been no substantial change in facts, evidence, or conditions.
That's one of many reasons.
Oh, that's one of many reasons?
Mhm.
Okay, that's the only reason
I had, remember I sent a flow chart? I had a little flow chart, PowerPoint. No, anybody? want this?
Yeah, I just saw that on
Yeah,
here.
this, then that, and that, then, yeah, right,
Right, but this is just the only one listed here.
yeah, okay.
So I feel like there is substantial change in conditions if it's not physical, well, at least
I'm
Sure,
not,
well, that's our discussion that we would have in a meeting. To decide if it's gonna, be a reader. We would have to discuss that in. And then everyone would have to vote unanimously that yes, indeed.
okay,
Should
that
be
makes me
reheard.
think that I'm leaning away from it being a rehearing if the data has all changed. That's a substantial
Okay.
change.
if you accept the data has changed, I'm not sure I do.
Right, so you might think differently and when votes, everyone can vote except for one, and it's not gonna be reheard. So we want to avoid that if we can. I'd love to find out if this is just moot, if it, it's just something that's, we're just starting with a clean slate, that would be very interesting, but I still want those things that I asked.
Every option is terrifying. There isn't one option.
Well,
that's woohoo.
We
So-
also deal with another side of it, a lot of us do.
Yeah.
The option of the 500-year being, oh, it's okay, it doesn't have to be 500 years. That's terrifying to us because it's so wrong. That connotation is wrong and the conclusions from that are wrong. So those are terrifying.
Wow.
20 years, 500-year storms in 20 years. Fit that together with those two things. Okay, so, and it's more frequent and it's going to be.
And the predictions are a bit more.
Yeah, all right, so, anyway, so
Thank
those are the terrifying
Thank you
things
guys
that,
for
those are the
hearing
things
us.
that terrify us.
Mhm.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will be
Thanks.
engaging with emails on what we need to get to you guys and next steps.
And this is like speed chess. This went into your time for the next time too.
I'm so good with that.
Thank you. Thanks, appreciate it.
I'm sure.
Look forward to communicating with you.
Have a good night, guys.
What's your name?
Jessica.
Jessica. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Jessica, I'm sorry, did I?
No, you
I
did. I think you did.
Jessica's the CEO. She's been there
You-
since
you-
2021
you did.
after Bill Russin.
Yeah, you
He
did. I was-
forgot.
Okay.
I didn't write it down, so just wanted to record it now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
The new Joe Montero, right?
Oh, yeah, right. That's it. A lot of things changed since then.
Well, that must have been a long time ago.
Yeah,
I've never even heard that
it
name.
was.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks. Okay, the first item of new business, very quickly. It's public hearing for, no, just kidding. From Katrina Morris, who on behalf of the owner of Karen Benjamin, has applied for a minor subdivision to subdivide the existing 15.07 acre lot into 2 lots. Planning board was briefed on their proposal during the board's March 7th meeting, or March 7th, is that right? Yeah. Okay. And subsequently, the applicants have proposed a new lot configuration, which will require an area variance. So for the appeal at hand, Ulysses Town Code UTC 212-130. States flag lots shall meet the minimum lot area excluding the pole, lot width, and lot depth requirements of the zoning district within which it's located. For the definition of quote, lot flag, under UTC 212-22, and for the minimum lot frontage width requirements for the AR zone under UTC 212-29. The front lot line is required to be 400 feet in width. The applicant has proposed a lot width of 200 feet. Would you like to come up and present
Yes.
and state who you are, please, because
Yes.
who's doing this?
Hi, I'm Karen Benjamin, the owner,
Hi, thanks,
and
thank you.
this is Katrina.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lori.
And I think during the time between March when we first applied for the subdivision, and now Karen was away, so I was working with a surveyor, so I know more about how this all went. So the lot that you're referring to was our second survey, and I hope you have the third survey, which is a flag lot. We do. Okay. So the flag lot that we.
So,
Is it
can you
this?
just,
You can come up. and look.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
look
it's-
at-
We can
Be
be.
verified
informed.
it's this one that we're
Yes.
talking about. 'Cause we all have
Yeah,
the
yeah,
same-
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
The
That's
one
it.
that's laying down.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so,
That's what
um,
they said. That's what they-
That's the one I want.
that's what they
Yeah,
said. Okay.
yeah.
Because the other ones were all inside the package in there. but
Okay, this is the only one we're doing tonight.
yes.
This is what they're asking for.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Yes, I can tell you briefly that the second one, required a couple of variances, and so we went back to drawing board, and this one, hopefully, our surveyor said it just required one variance, which would be the flag used to be tilted the other way so that the 400 feet was parallel to the road. And when we did that originally, it cut Karen's property right in half, like it was a big horseshoe. And so it was a really poor use of the land. So we went back to,
Can you tell me, that's not the second one, that's the first one.
That's the
yes,
first
that's
one.
the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so if
yeah.
you did that first one, you wouldn't be here, correct?
Right.
yes, yes.
All right.
Yeah, the first one was all to code.
Yep.
And when we presented to the planning board, they said that really is a weird configuration and, really.
We all agreed, and it made my property shaped like a horseshoe, so
Mhm.
hers went right.
And it
Yeah.
devalued her property. It had to be that way because we were trying to, the 400 feet would have come right into her house, so we had to push it way up into her property. So that, it ended up being a horseshoe. So this is what we came up with, which our surveyor thought was the best plan. So it meets all the requirements except for the 400 feet. Going parallel to the road is now going back. So it's going east-west instead of north and south. I feel like it's the best use of the land.
Hi, this is Liz.
Yeah, yeah.
What happened to this little piece? That was subdivided and sold
That's
Yeah.
not her property.
Yeah, the one
anymore.
before, when did that happen?
a couple years ago. The
Okay,
subdivision
it's really
happened a
not
few
caught
years
up on the
ago.
maps yet, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
The parcel
that
maps?
subdivision happened a couple of years ago,
Okay.
and then,
By you, I mean, you did that?
no,
No.
by the owner that I bought it
You
from.
bought it.
A
Oh,
year
So you
ago.
bought it after that subdivision?
I bought it after the subdivision.
Yeah, I
and
was wondering
then
about
I bought
this.
the whole thing and then sold that subdivided
Right.
5-acre piece. to a friend.
It is right on the county maps, you're right.
No, it's not, it's not on anything that I found.
Okay, so
Have you seen
you're
it?
Karen.
I'm Karen.
Takes at
and
least a
you
year.
are-
Katrina, I would like to buy the property that hopefully
Okay,
will
right.
be subdivided, yeah.
Can I ask why You know,
Yeah.
just to be honest on the face of it, I'm disinclined to think that 200 versus 400 is a good idea. I understand what you're trying to do, but why can't you use 400 feet to go to about there? Still have this come up and, you know, the flag lot could start. I mean, you can almost do it.
Well, they would need a flag lot for 400.
Yeah, because then it would be 200 feet here. This is 600 feet.
Yeah, it would take care, it would get rid of the existing.
But it's only 600. I thought it was-
Yeah.
It was Benjamin's property.
Well, if you include the property that was already subdivided, it's more than.
I see,
you know, it's
because
1,000.
this is telling me it's
Yeah.
760 feet. That's not right.
No,
Okay.
even so, we
Wrong-
can divide
wrong
it by
information.
400 and 400, so,
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it's still, that's more than 600. I mean, I'm not good with,
No, you need two 400-foot.
yeah, let's,
Yeah,
I actually,
You need 800 feet to do that, whatever you. do.
yeah, no, I know. But I thought this really is 760.
I think
You
it
tell me
is.
it's not? I think it is.
well, what happened in the very first one was we had the flag, the pole go all the way up here.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
And then it was 400 across, which is about. you know,
Right, but
like
we're talking about the
there.
road frontage here, from there to there.
Right, but it can't, you know, like, there's no 200 feet that we can go this way, you know, up to the house.
Sure, yeah,
cut
you have
into
to
the
have a lot
house.
depth at that point too. right?
Yeah,
So that would just be 400, even if you split it, then it'd be,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, even if it isn't quite 400, so even if you didn't do this, you need a variance, but it's a small variance. What
Yeah.
you're asking for is a big variance, which
oh,
we don't give as easily.
okay,
We just don't. And, you know, the little bit of background from my perspective, the town board came up with this 400-foot frontage idea in 2005. Actually is a majority Republican town board, pretty conservative people, and they thought that was the best way to offer long-term protection for open space.
and
The town board has re-debated that countless times.
Yep,
We had the steering, the zoning update steering committee that I
Yeah.
sat on for a while, and then Steve sat on for a while, where we debated with the town board. This board
it wasn't
tried,
debated too hotly. though.
tried to
There's
get the
some-
town
some
board-
factions that didn't want it, but mostly everyone was good.
with a 400 feet, yeah, but we actually, this board tried to get the town board to take up some more creative ideas to, as you subdivide, to keep the land open, and we lost. They stuck with the 400-foot. But the 400-foot is the aspect that, it's the only thing that's in
it's a
the,
standard,
that
yeah.
keeps this open.
Mhm,
So my concern, given that, is if we were to approve this,
mhm.
you know, you could come back and ask for a comparable thing over here in a year. And there's, you know, how could we say no, because we've already approved that one?
Well, there, I mean, so.
Does that make sense?
It does, well, it has to be 200 feet, and it has to be 400 feet.
Well, but this is 760 feet, so you could
We'll
get.
still have a 50-foot flag, no problem.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
could fit another such request in your property.
And actually, you know, if you wouldn't even need us to do this. You wouldn't-
And that's breaking up
feet and then
your
you
property
get your
in a way
parallel
that
road
the
to
town
it.
board clearly intended not be the case, right?
And the planning committee
Well,
and
some
everybody else.
people might, you won't, but maybe you'll sell it.
Yeah, I
in
just,
6
you know,
years to
just
someone
turn
else.
it over in
right?
a year.
So
You
that's-
know, you
that-
said you got this place?
That's the discussion
Yeah.
we need to have, right?
Okay.
It's just a table.
Yeah, we're thinking of all of it,
Yeah.
for sure, we definitely.
Yeah.
I saw three examples, three alternatives that you presented.
Yeah.
And the first one was a block coming straight off of here, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that one there, we all think differently, and we ultimately will vote, and we'll vote what we think. I'm gonna tell you that I would say no,
Yeah,
absolutely not. That's
To that one,
exactly
to that
to a block.
Yeah.
that was the
Because that's
second
exactly what
version.
we don't
That
want.
was
Right,
when
We don't
right.
want that. We don't want a house every
Right,
200 feet,
right.
or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going back on what, I was there, and I was there painfully, I guess, over years going through this, and, I mean, painstaking, I should say. Yeah, really, it was a labor of love, we all did it, but we did it a lot, and we thought very carefully, and everyone landed on this 400-foot. So that was really important, and it's important to preserve open space, and not have that look of house,
Yeah.
house,
Right.
not in this zoning district anyway.
Right.
Okay, that's for other places.
Mhm.
So that one is, like, to me would be, no, just no.
Yeah, that's what we
This
took it
one,
off the table.
to me, is kind of like, how much different is that than
Mhm,
that other one?
mhm.
Well,
You have
this
a
area
little
is more
space and you have a house. house and a house.
This area is more, it's protected.
Well, right now, that's a whole grove of walnut trees, which we want to keep, but.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
yeah, I know, I know, it's nice too.
It's a beautiful property.
It is a
Mhm.
beautiful property.
Mhm.
So, I just
And we're
want
gonna
to
be
get
there forever.
one
By
thing.
the way,
Good.
we're not moving.
Good.
This is it.
Good, that's what I like to hear. Okay, I just don't like the configuration. I really don't like that. And I really didn't mind the one that I said we wouldn't need us if you did
Okay.
that. Or if you went farther back. See,
Mhm.
this, to me, is not the best, as you said, I think you said the
Mhm.
best use of space.
Well, we tried
Property
to.
or something like that.
We tried to make it the best use of the land, because the one that, the first one we had where it's going out, the flag is going that
Oh,
way.
yeah,
it Makes
yeah,
a big.
but it's
issue
just like,
and it
I'm
just-
rejecting the framing. of
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's not the
okay,
best, I don't
okay.
think. I think there are others and, like
Okay.
this, something like that is not a
Yeah.
poor use of the land.
Mhm.
Going back
Mhm.
here and having all,
Mhm.
those are not poor uses of land.
Okay,
I didn't mind that one that was this way. I didn't mind. that.
yeah,
Now it breaks
It does this to my property.
and this
Yeah.
does too, though, by the way. So this is very
Well,
horseshoe. It's just.
but
it's
thi- this one
It's
has-
less of a horseshoe.
yeah,
So
this one has like
These are kind of
100
split
feet
here.
here,
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
easement, so like a little path that
Yeah,
goes
saddle,
from
a
one
little
side to
bit
the
of
other,
saddle.
yeah.
Uh-huh. But I see that, you're preserving all of this. I get that. How much do you want to preserve? All of it? I mean, because the other option is just to do that back here.
So do the
So
flag
make
as
that-
plan, like plan A. the
You could
first
even
one.
have this and then have the. What
Oh,
would
give
happen
me the very back. of
what would
the-
happen if they did this? If they
They
went,
went
you
a
know,
straight
the whole
driveway
two-
back and
Yeah.
did that.
And
then
the
she has
house
really
doesn't have
nice
to be back
property.
there.
Oh,
Oh, it doesn't?
Right?
Well, it can't be in the
Does what?
flag, it can't be in the pool.
Where are you gonna put it?
we're not gonna put it in
The house could be here where it is, and then you
Oh.
could, and then add this
Oh,
much more
so
property
wide,
there.
Well, then she's
So
like,
adding
yeah,
this
yeah,
much.
yeah.
That's a lot of property.
What?
That's a lot of property.
I'm saying
Yeah.
there are other
It
alternatives.
increases your property tax.
I know.
Okay. Who's gonna pay the tax? Yeah, we could. Oh, they're saying, so they're
Well, you're
saying,
just trying to get your
Yeah.
200 feet of parallel to the
You'd still
road.
need a variance from us, but it would be a small
Would
variance.
it?
Well, because it's only 760 feet, so we'd have to divide in half, they each have 380, they need 400. That's still.
No, this is road frontage here. All that's road frontage. This one,
yeah, but the flag needs.
They would need 400 total frontage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and this would be there.
And you don't have either, you have 760. It's close.
And this is way more than back here. This is gonna be,
That's still plenty. For
Yeah,
that's
that's
way
fine. So
more
you
than
can do
200.
a driveway back and have it back there, but that's a big driveway.
yeah, it's a very, very long
Yeah, I was not
driveway.
even-
Might be not
I
even.
wasn't even thinking that. I
feasible.
was thinking, you could, why would you have this and then just add more here?
I know, but then she's getting a bigger
I know.
land load than.
I was addressing the statement, it's the best use of the land.
We could take that right off the table and just say, I like this plan better. I
Right.
mean, it's
I
just.
think that's a.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
More honest statement. You like
Yeah.
that better. I got
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Andy, what do you add to this?
Um,
Subtract from it?
yeah, not a ton, but I couldn't see everything, the different drawings you guys were making over there.
It's so well done too.
No.
It's the architecture too.
We went to Ian 3 times already.
Yeah, her surveyor knows the land really well.
Well, you need 200 feet of parallel to here. So right now it's what? What is this?
170.
Wait, it's 200 feet. I'm sorry. He's
Yeah,
actually
parallel.
400.
You need the
feet.
400 feet
Yeah,
parallel.
he's 400
That's
feet,
right.
yeah.
150 now?
Oh, yeah, one,
Unfortunately, I know.
Plus
it's a
And
lot.
it's 150.
plus the 15.
So another 150 out here like that, would that do it? Doesn't have to be
Gosh.
out back here. I'm not sure how, when you configure these little L-shaped lots and stuff,
Mhm.
how much of the property has to be road frontage? Can be a strip?
50 feet.
You're talking about the pole portion?
Pole's gotta be.
No, the parallel to the road frontage.
It's gotta be 400.
That has to be 400. And
How
then
about the width?
the width has to be 400.
It's 200 by 400.
It's gotta
Like
be
if it
200
was-
deep, right? The flag has to be 200 deep. Is that,
The pole portion
50.
needs to be 50 feet wide and at least 100 feet long.
Yeah.
And then the flag portion needs to be 400 feet for lot frontage
Yep,
parallel to the road.
correct.
And that's what starts your setbacks,
And what about the lot depth?
200
The flag or total?
flag.
That's what I thought. So it's two, the flag's gotta be 200 or 400 minimum.
Well, it's plus 2 acres. So if you
Yeah.
do 400 plus or times 200, you're still under 200. So something has to bump up.
Doesn't the flagpole deal with it?
No,
No, 'cause it's, no,
it's just the flag counts.
specifically says it's not included in the one.
In the area?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You guys can't make a accessory dwelling for.
That's what you were just saying, that's fine.
What would that entail? I mean,
It's a whole different deal because you don't have your own separate properties at that point.
Right.
so it'd be my accessory dwelling
It
unit.
can't be a primary though.
It's
No.
an accessory,
Yeah, I know.
so she's got
I'm
her
just telling them
primary.
you can't
But
be a
I
primary.
can't live there.
You can have 12, it can be 1250, I think 1200, 1250, 1250 square feet, which is a decent size. That's my house. Like,
Yeah.
mine wasn't that for 3 people.
Yeah,
And then you don't have to do any,
But then it wouldn't be a subdivision, it would just be an ADU on my property that I would rent.
something like that. You'd have to have a different, yeah, it wouldn't be your own property.
It wouldn't
so-
be your own property.
No, then that's the only way around the zoning.
It doesn't require.
But I couldn't live there, it couldn't be my primary dwelling.
Yes, it could. because
They can be your
I-
primary, it just can't be exceed the,
Okay, well, yeah, because I'm working with an architect and my house is definitely smaller than that. It's a
Nice.
small house, it's 900 square feet on the basement, it has a lot.
we're examining alternatives. So if
Yeah.
there are alternatives, then you wouldn't need us, then no. That's the lucky, great.
Is it true it has to be an accessory building? I thought in this zone, can you have 2 primary residents on a lot?
I don't think, I mean,
In a lot
Not
of.
anymore, it changed. That's the.
Townwide. Really? I thought it was still on.
you can
No,
check,
that
but
was the
I'm under the
zoning
impression
change,
that-
that was one of them.
I don't know.
It's gotta be an accessory unit.
Really?
You can't have 2 primaries, correct?
Correct. So if they went through an ADU, the ADU is considered an accessory,
Okay.
not a primary.
And basically, what are the ADU limitations?
Can't do that.
It,
We want it.
Who would we talk to?
it would be your property. It wouldn't be Katrina's. That's
It
the
would,
first.
so
and
that's the
foremost.
biggest thing, I mean, that's some the discussion we've got to have, is that really what we want to do?
Okay.
Um,
You
I
could
don't
have
think I can
turned it
decide
down.
this minute.
No, you can't
Yeah.
decide this.
Might take another hour.
Just examining alternatives, and that would just be,
That's a good alternative.
that's an alternative.
I mean, it's
Well-
the only alternative that kind of keeps with the intent of the zoning, which is to not have.
Well, what do you think of that? Do
Have
you
a-
think that keeps with the intent of the zoning?
Yes, absolutely.
That is.
Oh,
what-
no, the thing that I just mentioned, the accessory dwelling.
No, I was talking about that.
No, I don't
This
think
does
this
not.
does.
Right, that's why I'm worried about this.
This,
I'm
this
worried about
plan
it
here,
too.
I'm worried about this proposal getting past this.
this whole proof here, and
Yeah.
that decision could be made tonight, whether.
Yes.
It could, yeah.
Yes, we can make that decision.
It requires a simple majority vote, so if 3.
Unless you come up with an alternative, and.
Well, I guess the alternative
That's more acceptable.
would be that first plan, the one with the traditional flat lot.
Okay, we're done then. We're done, right? That wasn't a variance.
No,
Well,
it's
it's
still
not
requires. It's still
It's not a
requires.
That one, the first
It's
one?
under 400 feet.
No, the first
No,
one.
the first one
No, the
was-
first one has the flag
The
going.
first one was all following.
Yeah.
There's only 760 feet of frontage, so you
But
cannot-
they just need 400 parallel.
But-
It
but
doesn't
the-
have to be frontage. Frontage. The frontage will be in the other one, right?
They can't be,
I'm gonna.
Neil,
see
am I
what
wrong
Bob
on
is
this?
looking at. What do you
It's-
look
Yeah,
at?
did you have plan?
This
A?
is 760 feet, right?
Okay, so what they're saying,
The
the original
first
one
one?
is
Yeah.
a
that's-
flag lot still, so it's only
Yeah.
taking out this
So
50,
this
but
is
then
the
back here it has the 400.
So the 400,
Size.
but the 400,
That's
the other was
my
400,
Yeah.
this, add it like that to get within that, that's my.
Yeah.
And then
No.
this is
No,
conforming.
this one has this,
Yeah,
all
it's
this
for-
road frontage.
for-
As
This
long
one
as
has
that
something
distance
back
that
here,
way
it's a
parallel
flag,
to
but
it
it's
is
parallel.
400.
It is, yeah.
That's what I thought.
That's all, that's all.
Am I-
Yep.
So-
Maybe you want to show them.
I've never-
You have it there, okay.
Yeah, this
I
flag,
wouldn't
as long as this goes like this, that. and
I
that's
was
400,
under the
that
impression that
passes.
400 here was additive with the 400 feet.
No, this has its own street.
So
Yeah, it was a very long driveway.
this was the original proposal.
Yeah.
So this total length
Yeah,
is
and
400
that was
on that code.
Yeah, which
And
one's
that was
not?
over
No, I mean,
2.
this
So
one
this
here.
one was what they
Oh, that,
That's that
pitched to the
I
planning board.
think
It's gotta be-
it
And this
is,
might go, this wouldn't have required.
well,
variance.
without.
So the 400 there doesn't
There.
affect the frontage on the.
At least,
remaining property.
I mean, our surveyor is pretty good.
I just.
Why do you say 373?
There was the-
Yeah, because they still have over 400
Here.
total here, so
It's from the
it wouldn't make
bottom
that
up.
lot
So the
non-conforming,
full-
if
the
that's what
full
you're.
is just
Yeah,
that
that's what I'm
section,
thinking,
and that's
because
right
I
there
would have
is
thought
where
that the sum of the two.
Yeah.
800.
And so the,
But that's
so
not the
that,
case.
that's what it.
And what about the
Probably
parallel? Parallel?
So,
That's
yeah.
not parallel.
It's not parallel, but the code, if you're looking more or
And it's not-
less,
that's-
something like
that's not
parallel to
parallel,
or
so you
more
have to
or
move
less parallel to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well,
Right.
Reoriented.
It has to be.
So we just-
So you would-
just
you
measure
would
this way.
issue
Oh,
a
you-
permit for that without a
It
variance.
just has to be.
Or the
number.
planning board would.
Yeah. You're on the walk. I think it'd be fine for me.
Yeah.
If they were off by a little bit, if the original work variance,
It does put a very long driveway through that.
very long.
Ancient Walnut Road.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, it
is,
might not even-
Wait, this one,
Yeah.
that one was a very long driveway?
No,
Yeah,
no,
375
people-
feet. The-
people say it should be the- selling walnut.
Oh, that's true.
Where's the ancient?
Yeah, I know. Well, we gotta let that edge too. so
Yeah.
We can do
No,
it.
it-
actually- So-
Here,
Great
here,
firewood.
here.
Yeah.
Well, the wood package is one of them.
Yeah.
That's here.
So you'd be building the house in the front.
I'm not, kind of, like, yeah, it's more like here.
So
Oh, so you.
I think you told me
Yeah.
that, wrote somewhere. That the first configuration, that would conform.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's 400 feet parallel to the road though, right?
Here it is, right here.
More or less.
It's a rough tip like it is. It's a rough arrow.
Yes, yes, that's really.
Well, no, I think Ron told me that. That distance. It's gotta be.
House garage. We have a picture.
Although,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I can see why.
see, I mean,
They're much better now. They're all-
Yeah, no, that's.
Yeah.
so is the other one, though. The other one's just.
Yeah. My worry with what you're proposing is simply that it allows the possibility of doing the same thing with like more of the property. And I don't, I have a hard time with that. That's my real concern.
So we're looking at this from, that's kind of pull out view,
Yeah.
not you wonderful people, we're looking at it as,
Right.
yeah, but then the next one comes in and the next. one.
Yeah.
We have this, that, and that.
So you're saying this sets a precedent?
And there are two.
Because you can
Well,
say no
with it-
next
I
time.
mean,
Well, it doesn't set it, it also leaves
Yeah.
it wide open, leaves it wide open, so you can go with the
Even
secondary
for your
unit,
property.
you can go with the secondary unit, you could have 4 houses. So, yeah, I'm always concerned, really, I've been watching stuff change hands
Yeah.
and change,
Yeah.
and stuff happens. and
Yeah.
Um,
And then if.
So
it's-
yes, we're always
Needs,
thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe See the inside of the brain here.
So let's vote
No,
on
it's
this
true.
one.
Vote on.
Let's vote on this so they know.
Well, let me,
And then we can,
let me-
if we say no, then they can always do this one.
let me throw out 3 possibilities. The thing, well, one is Cheryl's idea that, you don't actually own the property.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. I agree with that. The second is you go back to what you proposed originally, which makes your land strange, but doesn't require any approval from us. You're done. The third is for us to approve what you've asked for.
Mhm.
And I might be willing to do that if I were not concerned about further subdividing the land. So if you would accept the, a permanent restriction on further subdivisions, that accomplishes.
No, I mean, how could I even do a subdivision? I
Well,
mean,
you could, because
If you do the same.
you can do the
Land
same
lots
thing
and
on the
you
other
can do-
side, which is my concern.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Another
saying you
flag.
would, but, you might, you want to live here forever, but
Yeah.
30 years, 100 years, someone else could do it, 10 years, 5 years. So, and we don't want to set an example where other people come in and we let them do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's not even the.
We don't have to be
example
100%
precedent.
on that.
I don't,
We gotta be fair.
Mhm.
yeah, so it would be, the requirement would be no further subdivision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which would be a deed restriction for you.
Right, and if
As
I
part
wanted
of
to
the
have like
condition,
a granny unit or something, like an
So,
ADU.
yeah, how do you feel about the ADU?
So that's not something.
One of
Yeah.
each.
Yeah, you could still have your
That's not a
accessory dwelling.
subdivision.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if that's something that I want, but
It's a good set of.
we're trying to get Katrina a house to live in. That's priority.
I'm just saying, those are the three possibilities I see, or we just vote for it. But I think we're likely to vote it down without a restriction.
I think you heard that from 2 or 3 people already.
Would
We
you be
can't
willing to
speak for
put a
each other,
restriction
but
on
we
it?
all speak
Oh,
for
wait,
ourselves.
no, but if I'm
And maybe
willing
you
to
need to think about it.
Oh,
some
I'm
more, you
totally
know,
willing to put the restriction on it. I wouldn't want another subdivision on.
Okay, I
Yeah.
mean, that would be my concern. Partly, it could be on your property, but we also don't want to set an example where, neighbors or someone else.
Yeah.
Maybe do it for them, do it for us, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it's out of control.
Also-
It's hard, puts us in a difficult.
We're
Yeah.
also talking about future owners of the property,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and that's
Oh,
really,
absolutely.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
No, that's always
that.
a
That's where the-
consideration, yeah.
rub really comes.
Yeah,
And others who are not. Yeah.
Get somebody who, a clever lawyer,
yeah.
Mhm.
figures something out and so forth. That's
So
kind
can,
of what we're concerned
Well,
about.
also zoning changes and all.
and I,
Right, and this would
that's true
preclude
too.
that, anything.
Yeah.
Well, I'm willing to take that condition.
Why? I'm okay with Andy thinking about
Yeah,
that.
I'm okay with the deed restriction, restricting another.
I'm still back on the ADU, so we're gonna have 4 buildings on these.
I think that still, without a variance, could be done. So it could
One
theoretically
can be done.
be for one.
Well, see, there,
One of
there's
each
gonna be a
lot.
deed prepared somewhere in this,
Yeah, if they did the- if they did the one
Yes,
side
yeah.
variance.
and it seems to me that a deed restriction could be placed in there, which would bind both you and you.
Yeah, we actually,
From subdividing. Well, she's gonna only have
Well,
2
not-
acres.
You can't subdivide.
right,
Yeah.
but even so, we were planning on having a deed restriction on this strip of land between us so that it was,
With a vegetation
touched.
buffer.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
said a share or something.
Yeah, it was like-
Driveway or something.
yeah, just
Yeah,
so no one
that would
cut down
protect
trees.
the walnuts.
Yeah. I mean, we hope to be good stewards of the land. I mean,
Not to be
Yeah,
a
me too, bro.
Yeah. Mhm.
You better be, that's a beautiful place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They are, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
our job, we drive by. Did you see us like loitering on the street?
Oh, you're the ones.
Yeah, exactly.
You probably did see us. I parked twice. There's no trespassing sign there, so I didn't walk in.
Oh, well, that was the old people, yeah. Yeah, anyway, yeah, well, you
Yeah,
can
we
see.
just take care of our landscape, how's that sound? We cover it the way it is, it's beautiful.
Mhm,
Yeah,
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
agree.
Should we step away while you think about it?
The public, we were recording.
Okay, all right.
There's nothing secret over here. We're actually not allowed to discuss it.
Do you
Oh,
each-
okay.
Each of you have separate
But you can sit
attorneys?
down if you need.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's where I was coming down, and okay, we need, and 2 deed restrictions here, is that?
I don't think there's a deed restriction on your new
On
property.
hers, yeah.
No,
It only
no.
pertains to the remaining property,
Because that,
which could be,
It's-
unless we want to prohibit second accessory building.
Well,
No, I know, that's what I was pushing,
Which
but I
we-
didn't,
which we
I didn't
could.
feel like. I get pushed back on it. And I'm not sure that I really push for it.
and
I'm not
whatever,
sure I push
I
for
mean,
it.
her house is only 900 square feet, so
yeah,
you can't have an accessory building that's very big, it has to be smaller than the principal building. so.
yeah.
Oh, it
It's
does?
just-
Way
Yeah.
smaller than the principal building.
we don't get
Yeah.
much smaller than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not, I wasn't, I was just throwing it out there, I don't think I'm. even-
So do you guys want to sort of think about this?
No, I think it's up to Karen. She's willing to put the deed restriction on not subdividing the rest of it, so.
Yeah,
I mean, if you have any discomfort, you can think about it, come back to us.
no, I'm good with that. As long as I know I could at one point put an ADU on my 13
I don't think
acres.
there's any restriction. It's just
Okay.
against a further subdivision.
Good
Yeah,
point.
I would not want to subdivide anymore.
Yeah, okay.
I'm clear with that.
And so what are you left
There's
with?
nothing else in
13?
the zoning,
13.
nothing else in the zoning would be changed, just
Yeah.
you were agreeing and putting into your deed restriction.
Yeah, that you
Right.
want to, and
Fine
then
with the
even
board.
if you're not there, then the next person.
Yeah, see, the deed restriction supersedes any future changes in the zoning law.
And
That's what we-
ownership, zoning law, anything supersedes.
So no one could do further development.
That's what we heard about also the 40-foot buffer between us that would carry on
That would
with the
carry on.
deed. Yeah, so that's all good.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I just want to throw in one more thing. I'm always concerned about the downside of Du Bois Road, everything going down toward the.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
What concerns you?
the slope.
I'm
It's
always concerned about making too
Stuff
much
from your property
development there
goes to the
Yeah.
lake
and
pretty
junk
quick.
in there and,
Yeah.
you know, oil from boat storage, you know.
You don't have boats.
Commercial picking.
Yeah, it's not a huge slope, but it's a little
It
bit.
starts.
slope. It starts there, it
It goes
starts
down
there,
fast.
It's on
yeah,
top of that watershed.
yeah, yeah,
Mini.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so who wants to take this on?
I did last
You're
night.
okay? All right, good. I should look at you.
Which one of these?
Okay, why do we have two resolutions here?
One is for seeker because it's an unlisted action, and then the other one specifically
And
for
we do that for a seeker? I thought planning board.
Yeah.
It's it's not carried under, the planning board does review for the subdivision. This is an area variance.
So it requires a seeker?
Yeah,
What's
it's
that
not,
mean?
it's not considered a unlisted, or it's considered an unlisted action, not a type 2. If it were type 2, then we wouldn't have to do seeker.
What is seeker?
The state environmental.
Oh,
It's that short form that you filled
that we
out.
did, yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay, let me just clarify, which of these plans are we talking about?
The third plan, Plan C,
The third plan, which is.
Plan C.
This one that I've scribbled all over. but,
It's a short,
This one basically.
Okay.
yeah, it's a short,
With the
Full
deed
of it.
restriction on the rest of the.
yeah.
And the first one's a seeker. I don't know
Switch,
what-
you know.
That's
I
what I'm
can't
asking
imagine, I'm
Neil,
just going
so
through my
We
mind here,
did,
why would I want to develop that?
We did
Well, but you can
submit that.
imagine someone else putting something
Is that what
exactly.
we-
No, why are we,
near
why is it in
here.
the field?
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
feel fit.
We're
Well, you
taking-
can
So,
tell it-
Okay.
I wouldn't, but yeah.
I know, but.
Yeah.
We can
I
talk to
think
the
about it.
farmer, see that his 401k.
Yeah.
Is it- is it on that one?
Trying to convert
Calling it
PDF
other
to
resolution.
Word.
You know,
So there's
there
a-
is
there
a
is a secret
Your
resolution.
investment.
Yeah.
That's the secret resolution? Did you get that? Oh, you.
Yeah, I did it.
They're probably. Well, you don't use
So I have a second make the changes.
I didn't hear it. I didn't
Yeah.
register it.
I already did the other one, no problem.
Yeah, it does.
Why do we have a secret resolution? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah, so most of the variances that come before the BZA are type 2 actions, which under seeker don't require anything. Right, so I previously contacted Nate on this because it's not specifically listed. Type 2 area variances are specific to residential uses, and the concern is that this would be, it is for proposed residential use, but it's for a residential lot. So it's a difference between use and lot. So his consideration was that it should be considered an unlisted action. That way it kind of helps save us from any challenge, if there were to be a challenge. So it's an unlisted action that requires a secret determination, which I don't know how often the BZA's done in the past.
Never.
Never.
And those two are
That's why
separate
you're-
resolutions.
We never did.
Well, you can take a preview. You can take that one.
This one?
Yeah.
I move that we approve Board of Zoning Appeals Resolution number 2023-003 seeker determination as written.
We have it. Second, that's seconded. Thank you. Andy? Any discussion on that? And you're saying as written?
Yeah, I thought briefly saying some mention of tying it to the restriction we're putting in the rest of it, but I don't think it's required.
Everybody want to kind of glance at that and any discussion that you have?
Yeah, whereas the BZA today has reviewed and accepted as adequate a proposed subdivision map. I think that maybe we should put in there at that point with the deed restriction.
Okay, yeah.
So in other words,
Okay.
the fourth whereas,
For the deed restriction against further subdivision of the property.
So contingent on, what's the words for Molly, do I think? Condition. Condition of.
condition upon,
So would you put it in other application materials, colon or comma? conditioned on the deed restriction for further subdivision of the property.
You got that, Molly?
So how do you want it to start?
We're in this part here.
Mhm.
So the fourth whereas, at the very end of that, where it says end other application materials,
Okay.
Yeah, right after the semicolon.
for the semicolon, right, comma,
Mhm.
conditional on the deed restriction for any for prohibiting further subdivision of.
Do we refer to the other document at that point? Mills?
Because I would suggest that go into the second resolution as a condition.
Right.
Yep. Agreed.
So then you go semicolon, yeah, so it's a simple addition there.
Okay.
And yeah, we add this to the.
Good one. Thank you, Logan. And so you accept that amendment?
Yeah, no, thank you. I was thinking of myself. I wasn't quite sure where to put it. That was easy. I did that instead of two.
Okay, so what's the motion then?
To, to,
With a slight change.
to approve this, secret approval with the slight change we made.
Okay, any more discussion? Want to call the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that's unanimous, there carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's for the first
That's just
part.
the first part.
Okay.
And
That's
yeah,
the
that was
second
just kind of a.
What was the secret part?
So we're just saying it's not gonna be a big
Ask him.
environmental problem.
Okay.
We're complying with New York state law.
Okay, got it.
Right,
And we don't usually.
that was a technicality, as you heard, that, you know, I don't know if we've usually done it, we all said never. Okay.
So we're feeling our way
So this is
along.
the first.
Yeah,
All right, so then we're left with
The actual.
real,
okay,
one we don't been talking about.
The meat and potatoes.
yeah.
Why, your motion, man.
Right, so where, maybe I guess we're under discussion. We can Talk about where we insert
Okay,
that deed restriction.
yeah, the conditions, I think,
Into the resolution.
we'll do it at the end for sure, but we'll probably do it throughout as we usually. normally do. Right, are you,
And then you have
Okay, good.
are you giving us a motion?
Sure, yeah, yes, I'll move. Boards of Appeals resolution. number 20.
Any second?
Second.
What do you got? Amy?
And so I would, under discussion, I would say that we insert under conditions of approval, the deed restriction language.
Need to have some, probably do need this.
restricted from further subdividing either property or just the bigger one, the property
Bigger
A
one.
one.
We
I think
could
it's
subdivide
A1.
smaller, yeah.
There's no way.
So,
Right.
yeah, they're restricted from further subdividing
Further.
property A one.
That addition made, or should we say the owner? Like,
We could specify the larger,
Or A one and the kind of, I mean, if they have this.
will they have that in the record? Yep.
They will. It's eight-
A1 and A2.
it's parcel A2.
Oh, it is A two.
Yeah,
The plan is Plan C, so.
I think we're just calling it that. So
Yeah.
mine is A2, yours is A1. This is parcel
Oh, yeah.
one, parcel A2.
Okay.
The larger parcel.
C2.
You
Yeah,
say the
the
larger
larger.
parcel.
Maybe the
Yeah.
13
Label
acres.
has A two,
Yeah,
so
Let's be more specific.
Okay.
Larger parcel, and you want to say currently owned by or not?
Yeah, I would
Okay.
say,
Karen Ben,
that clarifies it.
And approximately 13 acres.
mark is parcel A two. And the map, you're saying this, I don't see it.
it's.
So would it still be 4190 Du Bois Road parcel or?
Good question.
Her parcel is, yeah,
It's already passed.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to.
Agreed.
Dave, I defer to you. Is there any particular language we would need to put in on the condition of approval? Or do you have suggested wording for a brief sentence about restricting the deed from further subdivision?
I think that would be sufficient. No restriction
From
against
further-
the other, And I think condition
Further
should be copy coming
Gotten
to
covered.
the town of that deed when
Make
it's
sure I got the-
executed.
yeah.
To make this variance effective.
We can have a copy of your language to give to our lawyers.
Yeah, you will get the official.
Yeah.
Okay.
She'll have it official, but.
And you're sure I don't need to put any language in there to clarify that an ADU is acceptable if I should ever choose to do that?
No, because all we're prohibiting is further subdivision. So
Subdivision, and
every
that's
other aspect
different
is
than
only
ADU,
complies
got
to
it.
still. Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah, we're restricting, we're not saying, oh, you can do this, and you can have a water park there too, if you want.
Oh, boy.
yeah, there's a bunch of things you can still do to the property, you just can't subdivide,
I don't want to.
which is good, but.
Yeah.
We want to
And
make
this
sure,
restriction,
by way of example, and.
this restriction goes on forever.
Yeah,
Then, you know, people half a mile up the street come back to us, so, well, we don't do it here.
yeah.
We want to be a record, say, well, put a restriction. on it.
Yeah.
To accomplish the same goal.
Okay, so shall I read this?
Sure.
Chair? Okay, where it is. Yeah, this is a resolution of an area variance for approval for the Benjamin area variance located at 4190 Woods Road, County of Essex, tax parcel 27.3-12.2. Whereas an area variance was submitted to the Board of Zoning Appeals by Karen Benjamin, applicant and owner of property located at 4190 Du Bois Road, and which is approximately 15.07 acres in size of AR, agricultural rural. And whereas the area variance request is related to a minor subdivision application to subdivide the subject lot into two parcels, parcel A1, approximately 2.14 acres in area, and parcel A2, approximately 12.93 acres in area. Whereas the area variance request is relief from the code of the town of Ulysses 212-138.8 and 212-29.e, and the definition of flag lot under 212-22 to reduce the minimum required lot width at the front lot line from parcel A1 from 400 feet to 200 feet.
Can I interrupt? We're talking about parcels A1 and A2.
Right.
I think we should specify the date of the survey that they're shown on.
I don't disagree. But I can see it.
Wasn't it recently revised?
Yeah,
I
this-
see on the computer. It was well up there.
Yeah, the date that he has in the line is.
You have that? Oh, anything else?
Yep, it's May 8th, 2023.
Oh, right, you told me that too. It's one kept referring to me.
Yep.
Okay, I see it, the August 6th, 2019.
Yeah, I
No, I
see
see
that too.
That, so the original one, the original drawing is dated 8/6/2019, but it's revised. It was revised several times. So the one that's before the board is dated May 8th.
Can we provide that date and then say also see attached sketch or something, just so it's part of the record?
Yeah.
That work for you?
PDF papers.
Well, you get that.
I'm sorry to be so technical, but
No,
Where
it's,
exactly
but there's
do you
3
want that?
things out there.
this is
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah, yeah,
talking,
It's very important.
Okay, Molly, I think, so that
think
should
it's gonna
read
be
then, where we'll put in the date,
Not in the two parcels as shown in whatever.
yeah, right. Parcel A1, approximately 2.14 acres in area, parcel A2, approximately 12.93 acres in area, as shown on survey dated May 8th, 2023,
last revised,
And sketch attached.
last revised.
and sketch attached.
Yes.
That was the last revised. That was the date. Yeah. The original one.
Email. to us with the attachment.
Okay, and second, whereas I've already read, read again, the area variance request is relief from the code of town of Ulysses 212-130.8, 212-29.d, and the definition of flag lot, 212-22, to reduce the minimum required lot width of the front lot line for parcel A1. I don't think we need to repeat the date again, okay, from 400 feet to 200 feet. And whereas the planning board considered the proposals during sketch plat review on June 6, 2023, and provided comment to the BZA, the planning board unanimously concluded that the proposed project does not pose a detrimental environmental impact to the site or to the character of the surrounding community. Whereas this is an unlisted action for which the town of Ulysses Board of Zoning Appeals has on June 21st, 2023, made a negative determination of environmental significance after having reviewed and accepted as adequate a short environmental assessment.
May I interrupt you there?
Yes.
At the end of that, it's subject to the deed restriction. Against further subdivision, because that was part of it.
Yep, agreed. I think it goes there too.
That's part
So
of
where
it.
you want it?
That goes- We're right after short environmental assessment form, comma.
And
I forget what it said, but
I got it.
did you?
you got another.
If the review accepted as adequate short term.
Just-
And then what?
Subject to
Yeah.
the deed restriction against further subdivision.
Subject to the deed restriction. Yeah, deed restriction.
Okay.
against further subdivision. Just to make clear that's part of our secret determination.
Whereas the action does not require 239 review per the intergovernmental agreement made with Tompkins County, 24 November 2003. And whereas notice of the public hearing was published in the Ithaca Journal on June 16, 2023, was posted on the town's public legal notice board, was posted on the town's webpage, and was mailed to property owners within a 500-foot radius of the subject property. And whereas by considering the criteria listed in the consolidated laws of New York, chapter 62, article 16, section 267-B.3D, the BZA reviewed the record and weighed the benefits to the applicant against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood if the variance was granted.
Can I
Variances.
interrupt you for a
Yes,
second?
please.
Before you get into those factors.
Yeah.
First of all, you can take a drink of water.
Yeah.
But also, I was wondering, did we get some neighbor letters on this?
Yes,
one?
we did.
I didn't ask that. I was gonna throw that. in.
Well, I'm just thinking, I would
We
like
got
to
two and they
insert
were both-
that in here because I think that would make a little difference for me as far as openness to whatever they're doing at the everyone around them supported.
You wanna put it on here?
And the resolution.
Whereas we got letters that said, no,
I don't like that. I don't like that. I think we take that under consideration for sure.
But definitely considered that there were several letters in support,
yeah,
but I don't think we.
It doesn't
But
have
we
to
never
be in
put
there.
that. We
Okay.
never put that.
I'm not-
I don't wanna.
I might have
make it seem
voted
like
against it
it's
anyway. so I
popular.
thought it was a bad idea.
But
oh, yeah,
I said I might have voted against it anyway. I thought it was a bad idea.
right.
Just because the neighbors don't want to irritate.
Well,
It's a good idea.
No, but it's just something that you should list along with.
no, I think we should talk about it in our discussion and it's on the record that way. And so I'll.
Oh,
I'll leave
because
it
they
open
put
for-
the planning board recommendation in it, that's what made me start thinking about it, that if that is something that we weigh in and also. we'll let them, so.
So while we're catching my breath here, and where are we with the 500-foot radius? So we haven't extended that yet
Yeah.
officially, right?
Aside, no. No, we have not.
Okay. All right, well, then,
You want to add that to your discussion?
Okay, so,
Thank
if you
you.
want to start back, if and when you want to start back.
Yeah,
up,
okay,
we're,
great.
Just about to start on number
I,
one.
you know, I've always shied away from, making it, seem like it's a popularity contest or that it's really, it weighs really heavily on it, because it does sometimes and it doesn't. I don't really like, we do consider it, and I don't really like. to put it in.
Okay. That's fine.
yeah, so, okay, so I think I'm down to here.
Whereas, I think there's the, you read number
You already
one.
said all
Notice,
that stuff.
notice was given, okay, yeah, so number one,
Mhm.
whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to property, nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variances. And we have plural variances?
No, it's just one.
That's one.
Yeah, okay, wait, so
Should be
they
singular.
that, yeah. Granting of the area variance. Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible.
Well, wait, you want to answer that one?
No, because we answered the next page.
Oh,
yeah.
the way that
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
reading all those.
The
Okay,
way that
great.
Neil says laid it out. for us.
Got it.
Whether the benefit sought by the applicant, so this is what we consider the
Yeah.
criteria. Sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than variances, whether the requested area variances are substantial.
Variance.
Variance is substantial. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environmental conditions of neighborhood or district. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Now therefore, be it resolved, considering all the statutory factors set forth above, the Board of Zoning Appeals finds the following: the benefit to the applicant in granting of the area variance to decrease the minimum required lot width at the front lot line for parcel A from 400 feet to 200 feet will not, will outweigh the detriment. Will outweigh the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. Number 2, the granting of the area variance to decrease the minimum required lot width at the front lot line will not create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and will not be a detriment to nearby properties as determined by both the planning board and the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Can we add in there the condition? Because I think I would disagree if the condition were in there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Under
You're
number
saying the
2,
grading variance.
yeah, so how would you,
Will not create, or will not, or will not, right? You said?
It's
Will
Yeah,
not
it
create
will
an
not.
undesirable character, and then
It will not, because of the deed restriction we're placing in place, right?
because of. or-
Because they can accomplish
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same goal of putting the house in by other means. We are granting them their request to give them the lines they like.
it will not be a detriment to nearby properties
Character and all that.
Due to the
Yeah, what is it?
condition,
Is it as long as-
conditional deed
Due-
restriction.
Due to the deed restriction on further subdivision.
Yep, good, that's good.
Okay. Due to the restriction, for the subdivision.
Yeah,
I mean, we're gonna have the conditions of approval listed.
It'll be down to,
Sure, it's just
yeah,
explaining.
Right,
yeah.
Otherwise, we think maybe.
Spelled out at the bottom, yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So the benefit sought by the applicant to decrease the minimum required lot width at the front lot line can be
Can.
achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance.
Either but or with however,
Yeah, however, 70%.
however, with the required deed restriction.
This,
The
this method. What?
I'm not certain we need anything there.
just say that, Ken, maybe not.
Well, you know, I
We
would
have
have
to
to say
say
that others
can.
were examined and this one was deemed, with the restriction, this one was deemed the most feasible.
It could be,
Why don't you say the restriction below?
Yeah,
Yeah, with the
yeah,
restriction below, this was deemed the most
Right.
feasible. And I think that's true. I think.
yeah, okay, so we'll say, the benefit sought by the applicant to decrease the minimum required lot width at the front lot line can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. However, with the required deed restriction below, this is the most feasible.
desirable.
This is the most desirable outcome.
And least disruptive to the
I think that covers it, most desirable and, environment.
yeah, because we're talking about trees a lot and stuff, but I think factored in for us, we don't want to.
I'm okay with that. I'm done with that.
Yep, I agree.
Save the moments.
Okay, so however, with required restriction below, this is the most desirable outcome.
For the owners and the least disruptive to the. forest.
Up tomorrow.
He's worried about this. Forest, right?
Okay.
It's
All right,
a
no,
lane.
go ahead. Andy's thinking.
No, it's-
Andy-
let
Andy
Andy work on
Taking
that.
us thinking.
Yeah, it's the most desirable outcome, which preserves the character of the site. Does that, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
So no disruptive to the environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
That preserves the character of the site.
Preserves the environmental
I like
character.
environmental because it's not just like historical. I like
Yeah.
that word.
Okay,
You sold me on environmental.
okay. Molly, do you want me to repeat that?
I put, this is the most desirable outcome for the owners, which preserves the environmental character of the site. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yep. The requested area variance to decrease the minimum required lot width at the front lot line is substantial. And we could say more about however the deed restriction, but I don't need.
I don't think we need to.
Just leave it there.
The proposed area variance to decrease the minimum required lot width at the front line will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
With the condition.
With the deed restriction. With the deed restriction in place. The less difficulty to decrease the minimum required lot line width at the front lot line is self-created. For the reasons said above, and upon the evidence long facts, the BZA hereby does grant the area variance to decrease the minimum required lot width at the front line for parcel A1 from 400 feet to 200 feet for the proposed minor subdivision located at 4190 Du Bois Road, subject to the following conditions. Conditions of approval, number one, the deed restriction shall be in place for further subdivision of 4190 Du Bois Road, parcel A2. Survey date, May 8th, 2023.
That's it?
So,
Oh, wait, I thought you wanted to add the component about, the last part about that it should be handed over to proper.
Oh, yeah. The condition.
Well, I guess your lawyer is gonna drop the deed restriction.
Yeah,
Okay. Maybe we, before we're gonna approve this resolution.
Yep.
In our next meeting. So maybe you could have your lawyer put together the language that you would like to see in the, both of you would like to see in the deed. For us to, review, so the conditions of the approval will be the deed restriction. And maybe we could spell out more specifically in the language that your lawyers come up with.
My take is we're paying now.
Yeah, I think.
But we don't have to look at the.
Condition on what? Let's just
But
say
we
what
need
we
to
want.
give them enough specificity. Their lawyers need to provide to Neil for the town record.
I think
What
that's
is
what you
we-
said earlier.
Right.
And then
Because
condition
basically,
and they provide
We
the.
want to see the deed restriction of record in our files.
Should be filed with the, whoever, the county,
Right.
and provided to the town
No.
before.
That's what I like to hear. Not that-
So,
We don't need to see it and go down.
well, as I say, if this were a trickier item, I think I would want to.
Yeah.
But I think this is pretty straightforward
Yeah, it's just one restriction really.
and plain vanilla, but anyway, I think it should be clear that the deed restriction, when recorded and filed, certified copy should be in our town files
Agreed.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right.
Yep.
And,
So Niels will get that before you issue a permit.
and that's what we didn't do the last time.
I know, I
Yeah.
jumped on this.
So I'm
Let's-
just curious, my next step then would be to take. How do I get this language to my attorney?
Let's finish the language
Okay.
first. So,
And Niels can work with his bottom line.
Okay, and
So-
then that would be part of the contract between us.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And so one of the questions I have for this last little bit, do you want that to be part of the requirement for the planning board to review or no?
No.
Okay.
Planning board, no.
Wait,
They're
going-
done.
they're going back
They're
to
done.
planning.
It has to go to the planning board for approval.
First subdivision.
So they could make a similar or can confirm that a deed restriction would be
I
on
thought they
board.
did. They already approved it.
They did.
They didn't put a deed restriction on that,
Oh,
but they don't have to. I mean, ours is.
Yeah.
No, I thought they approved the subdivision. though.
They only did a sketch plat review,
Oh, okay. all right.
Because-
Yeah, Final
because
subdivision.
without a variance, you can't prove it.
right?
Right.
Sure. Oh, okay, really. Yeah, yeah.
So with the variance in hand, and then make the deed restriction, maybe should go to the. You know, once they approve variance. when they
Yeah,
go
is
for
that what
final
you're
approval.
suggesting?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being dense.
Okay, good.
Yeah, okay. And
And,
the planning board, and presented to the planning board.
Do we have, is the language for condition of approval completed? I've got
Let's see what we got.
restricted from further subdivision of 4190 Du Bois Road, parcel A2.
In perpetuity.
Yeah. I'd like some help with the language for that. And then a certified copy that should be filed with the town.
Certified copy of the recorded instrument.
Yep.
Should be filed in the town
Recorded
records.
instrument.
You had in there the part about the survey being dated May.
Mhm.
But you didn't just read that.
Earlier on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
earlier on.
They did.
Can we ask Molly to read back what she thinks it is?
Yes.
Now, when do you anticipate your transaction will be finalized?
I was just wondering that myself because, so it sounds like we have to get the lawyer to draw up the deed before it's finally approved by the planning board.
Well, within a couple months?
Yeah,
I would think you could do pretty. fast,
right away.
so.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but we drop the contract and give it to the planning board and then we can make our transaction
Yep.
after that, after this. approved. Okay.
Yep, after.
So my next step would be to go to my attorney with this language
Presented
and
to the.
have him draw up a contract for her return attorney's review.
Yeah.
And then submit that to me for the planning board to
So,
review.
yes, it's only your part that.
Copy.
What I'm
Really, yes.
submitting is our agreement
Oh,
or just the actual
The-
deed.
The deed restriction language, yeah, that's true,
The
yeah.
deed with the restriction.
Read out of Molly.
Can I ask who your lawyers are?
Chuck Gutman.
I've only used him once, I'm trying to think of his name. I can't remember, it's down near the inlet, there's an office up there. I only used him once, so, yeah, I could get to the.
Full disclosure, I used to be associated with Chuck Putman,
Oh, yes, not.
Yeah.
but
someone
you,
else.
you have your own separate lawyer, right?
Yeah, yep,
Okay.
Yeah, good.
yeah, it was just be her, I mean, I'm after we do all that,
Yeah.
after it's approved,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then my lawyer gets involved, yeah.
So.
Okay, we got it.
Yeah, so Molly, the condition of approval is that there's a restriction for further subdivision of 4190 Du Bois Road, parcel A2, as in survey dated May 8th, 2023. A copy of the deed restriction shall be presented to the planning board and a certified copy of the recorded instrument filed with the town.
Sounds good.
Very good.
you, thank you.
Did we,
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
We didn't say that yet.
Call the question.
Yeah, well, we all set for Molly, Molly, you good with all that?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna take your word for this. All right, so, I'm ready to call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's unanimous. Variance is granted.
Okay, now we can say it.
Okay.
Well, thank you for taking all the time and also the consideration for the neighborhood and the environment. It's really important to us too. So, thank you.
Thanks, it's nice to be appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah, how much work you do.
You invested a fair amount
It's a
of
lot
time and thought
to
in this yourselves.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Say, I'm sure you invested a fair amount of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We know our
Yeah.
surveyor
Well,
really
that
well.
counts, that really counts. You know,
And congratulations
We're not just trying to sell us on something. that
New neighbors.
should be equal.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
We're almost there. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
all right.
Good
Good
luck.
evening.
Good luck.
Okay, thanks.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And then the
Good
next
night.
thing, you already know what to do, you're gonna get with Neil.
I gotta get
Yeah,
you
yeah.
and get whatever I need to take to my lawyer.
Yep.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Laura, see ya. Good night. Okay, next order, next order of business?
Quick, yeah.
Yeah, new stuff.
The two things which I asked about, one is what the status of our required training is. As far as I know, the town board hasn't approved anything, but if they have, I missed it, and I'm wondering if you can give us an update as to the status. They did tell us at one point that we would be notified.
Yeah.
When they passed something, and they applied it, was quite a while ago, but I don't. think we can-
Yeah, the last I heard, because I think Cheryl had a similar question on remote training, was that Michelle, I believe, was compiling everything, probably with Blixie into a packet, and that would be distributed. And once that was ready, everyone would be notified. So I'll find out what the status of that
So
is.
they have passed a resolution requiring us to do it.
Maybe no change.
But I wasn't sure that they had.
On the town board resolution, I don't know about. I know that they were working on some packets, so I don't know if that's part of the town board's review or what. But
Right, so we just want to.
I don't want to be in violation, but also not looking for.
I'd like them to
do.
Yep.
Yep.
I was told by my neighbor
Yeah,
that, that, no, that word's gone, we're not gonna do that anymore.
well, they said
And then I-
that.
so that's the last I-
Okay, can we formally ask for an update on what the status is? Maybe you could, or Neil.
When we ask them to tell.
All right. Okay, whatever, then I'll drop it. The other thing I'm interested in though is the status of the Angel Heart Diner on Route 89, because at one point you indicated that you would be coming to us for a variance. And then briefly let us know that it would not be required. And I understand that that was back in December, I believe. And it's been before the planning board. And I'm wondering, I think it's important that we understand why it does not require variance if it does not.
Okay.
Where is this?
It's a
Property
property.
gas station down at 89.
Okay, so it's the old Weaver gas station.
Yeah, and they're proposing to make it into a restaurant, and I was under the impression, in fact, some of the language we got says it's non-conforming, so it would seem to require a variance to do that. And it was on the agenda to be brought to us, but then I guess the town council ruled that it didn't require it.
And I'll go back. I'll draft up a quick update memo for the BZA, going over that. The discussion was previously with Nate, so I'll just go over that, have him review it, do a quick thorough review. So it's not a non-conforming lot, it's a non-conforming building. So that's one of the cruxes, but I'll get that, I'll send it out to the review. And
If it were a lot issue, then it should be coming to us, and my understanding is even if people don't want to come to us, we could bring it to us if we felt so.
that part I'd have to ask legal on that, yeah. If you felt it was a non-conforming.
The state guidance says we have the authority to look at it. There's enough town interest, and I hear.
It's
people
a
don't want to go
grandfathered
on.
commercial use, correct?
Correct.
When
Well-
do- when do grandfather rights expire?
Well, the use is going to a restaurant, which is a special use permit. So that's what's before the planning board.
Well, Mr. Weaver has gone for several years.
Correct, but the proposed use of a restaurant is a special use permit, which is permitted, but it needs approval by the planning board. So it's not necessarily a non-conforming use, what's proposed, it's a special use.
But there's a residence on the property as well. Is that correct?
I believe so,
And so there's two buildings.
two buildings. So
If we could receive a formal briefing, I would appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm interested. in that, for sure.
And you say there's no statute of limitations for this conversion?
Well, under town law, that it's
It's a non-conforming use, correct?
it's a special use permit. It's not a non-conforming use.
So special use, that's a.
Well,
If they're gonna have a gas station, that would be the non-conforming use.
what's
But-
a special use of the non-conforming?
So non-conforming use is something that, say, prior to the 2019 code was permitted, and then the 2019 code came in and made it no longer permitted. So that would be a non-conforming use.
The special is something requested, they granted.
Through a special use and site plan review.
I should know this, but I think there's limitations on non-conforming uses being continued. That's why they call it non-conforming, because they're not conformance with the zoning. And the
But
rights-
this wouldn't be non-conforming, though, this would be special use, so. that's not the same.
what I'm saying is, if there's a non-conformance, let's just say, for argument's sake, there's a non-conformance use here, what's the statute of limitations that they have to be exercised before it goes proof?
So hypothetically, it's a totally different topic here, but if it were a non-conforming use under town law, I believe it's 1 year.
1 year?
I believe so. However, this is a
what I
good legal
thought.
question
That's
because
what I thought.
there are a lot of court cases around the country that have, and I've gone through a few in Washington, where even though a non-conforming use may have ceased for a set period of time, unless an applicant or property owner has made concerted effort to change the use to a conforming use, courts have ruled that that non-conforming use, regardless of local regulations, is still valid. And that's definitely a question for Gina or Nate to weigh in on. But my understanding is, and this is case law, that's
Gina's looking at us.
gone this
She's
way.
nodding.
So it's a sticky, uncomfortable things for local jurisdictions, but
I think generally it's 1 year, but you're right. It's going to just be incredibly fact dependent because I actually recently did the case law research on this issue. So it's incredibly heavily fact dependent, and it's going to depend on how extensively essentially the individual owner moved away from the non-conforming use in said period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Again, if we could get a formal briefing, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I can have something put together or have Nate put something together, which will probably be me putting something together. Yeah.
Good.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Yep, of course.
Cheryl had something to say, that's your board was, just kidding. Any additional items? I think we're good, man. Yeah, okay, we'll save it for the next time. Mayor, motion to adjourn. Cheryl, Cheryl,
I second that.
you gotta propose it with a motion.
Oh, yes, I.
Are you the motion there?
I thought I moved it.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, Bob did.
All
Thank you.
right, I
And
second.
so, all right, I called the vote. Aye, all in favor? Aye, all right, good. Unanimous, motion,
Although that puts us even further behind us.
Yeah,
Oh, shoot.
I read
Minutes.
on the minutes.
Did you really? Good. Good. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks all.
And Tom
Thank
is
you,
still biting.
Gina, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Have a good night.
We're yelling
Thank you.
at you
Take
because you're
care.
up there against the wall. but- Yelling. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, he's gonna be tired.